Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm the Jaywalker. Today, I've got a good story. Another ghost story for Saturday. Haunted hospital. What the hell happened to this unit? Join me on the Jaywalk. Let's get going. So, today's story comes from my wife. So my wife and I are both nurses. We've both been working as nurses for a number of years. We've both worked at the same hospital. We work for the same hospital system, but currently work at differing buildings, different facilities. Just that's how things work. So my wife works at the 100-plus-year-old hospital that I've caught EVPs and different things at. That seems to be pretty active as far as haunted stuff goes, or at least that we found. So the situation with this story that my wife came to me with, she works on a pretty specialized unit. I don't want to say too much, but they kind of cover different units or different locations throughout the hospital. There's about 3 or 4 different areas that are on different floors that are taken care of by the unit that my wife works on. And today's story happened about 2 years into her nursing career, so it's been a number of years since this happened. But she was called by the emergency department to transfer a patient from the ED to one of their little satellite areas. And so my wife, okay, I'll go and do this. So she grabbed one of our colleagues, one of the techs, just to have someone else with her, make sure everything went how it's supposed to. So they go and pick up this patient from down in the ED, and they transfer the patient where they need to go. So they need to go from the 3rd floor, where they're at, where they just dropped off that patient, up to the 7th floor. And they're normally able to do that via the elevators that are literally right there, and get them exactly up to where they need to be. And so as they jump on the elevators, everything seems to be going pretty normally. They get to the elevator stops on the 4th floor, which, first off, isn't supposed to happen. So the 4th floor had been, it had a unit on it, and this unit had moved. It had switched facilities, and so it had moved. There's nothing on the 4th floor, or at least no patients that are supposed to be on the 4th floor. There were still beds, the rooms were still set up as rooms, patient rooms, but there was nothing there. There was no workers, there was no patients there. There was not supposed to be anyone there. But the elevator stops on the 4th floor, they're going from the 3rd floor up to the 7th floor. So they get to the 4th floor, it stops normally, everything looks good, except the fact that the door doesn't open all the way. It opens maybe 2/3 of the way. They have to squeeze out, but it just stops. Doesn't open, and it will not close. They try everything. They had all the buttons inside. My wife's colleague steps out, hits the button from the outside, see if they can get that to do something. Nothing happens. It won't the doors will not budge. Will not budge. They can't go down without the doors closed, so they're stuck. They have to get off the floor, they have to get off on the 4th floor and head to another bank of elevators. It's just weird. So as they get off, and they keep trying this bank of elevators they get off, trying to get it to move, and they're having issues. And as they're working on it, there's a nurse's station that's fairly close. It's right by them, and it's like in this little alcove, and there's a nurse's station right there. Phone starts ringing at this nurse's station. Not thinking too much of it. Maybe it's security that's calling. Trying to figure out what the heck they're doing on the 4th floor. My wife's coworker goes to grab the phone, picks it up. Hello? Nothing but static. There's nobody on the other line. Nobody on the other side of this phone call. My wife's coworker starts to freak out a little bit. So they're like, let's just get going, move over to the other bank of elevators and get the heck off this floor. My wife also mentioned about this point that everything wasn't going necessarily in slow motion, but there was just a shift almost in the feeling and time and just how things were moving. Things were weird. They see into a patient's room, just kitty corner off of this nurse's station, and monitors are on, and they shouldn't be. Again, there's no patients, there's no people, there's no staff, nothing. There's monitors on. They see a TV on, they see a couple of TVs on in the unit, and they're like, what the heck is going on? So they move fairly quickly down to the other end of this unit to get to this other set of elevators to get off the floor. They were like, maybe we should call, should Vocera, which are, these communication devices that we normally wear at work, and they're not wearing theirs. My wife and her colleague both don't have Voceras on, so they're like, let's just get off the floor and go and call security. Something else that they notice: the place is a mess. There's blankets, there's pillows, there's paperwork, just strewn all over the floor in piles. It's just, things are everywhere. Again, my wife said it was like being in, an urban exploration type thing where they go and explore old hospitals where they just find piles of paperwork and different things just strewn all over the floors. That's what it was like. It was just, the place was a mess, which is weird because it was left, or should have been left clean by this unit that had left. As they get to the other set of elevators, they go and they start hitting the button to go up. The button's not even lighting up. So you go and hit the button. Generally, there's either a light either around it or in the middle of it that shows that the elevator's been called. They can't get it to work. They're having issues. And my wife said it's at this point that she really started to panic. Goosebumps, and things are just, she and her colleague are not having a great time. And so they're standing there trying to call the elevator, trying to get off of the unit. And behind them, so they're standing looking at the elevators, behind them there's another nurse's station. When all of a sudden they hear what sounds like a very large, heavy book being dropped, thrown down on these old metal-style nurse's station desks that are behind them. Bam! And, just really freaked them out. as soon as that book or whatever sound hit that, they were still hitting that button. As soon as that book, or the sound of that book or whatever it was being dropped behind them happened, all of a sudden time, or that feeling of just unease or that kind of glitchy feel went away, and the light for the button, for the elevator button, lights up, and the elevator comes. So elevator gets there. My wife and her coworker hustle into the elevator, and they bust up to their unit, and they call security. Hey, we've got a problem. We just got stuck on the 4th floor. I know we're not supposed to be there. There's nobody that's supposed to be there. We're not even supposed to be able to get to the floor without, authorization, but we got stuck there. We couldn't. We had to get off. Blah, blah, blah. Starts talking to him about it, and it has been just trashed. Looks like somebody's been on there. And security was like, okay, we'll go ahead and start checking into this. My wife's unit and security has a very good relationship, a very good working relationship. So they're like, oh yeah, we'll go get right on this, go and try and figure this out. So 2 things. They, later on, about an hour or so later, security gets a hold of my wife, and they tell her a few things. First off, yeah, it looks like somebody has been on there and just completely trashed the unit, which was weird because the security guards that she was talking to, they had gone to that unit at the start of their shift, so just a few hours before. It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning when my wife gets stuck on this floor with her coworker. So we're talking 4, maybe 4:30 in the morning when they're talking to her. So, just a few hours before they get stuck there, these security guards had been there. They were like, we walked through there, everything was fine when we went there, and yeah, it was trashed when we went back up. It was so weird. And we went through and looked at the tapes, and looked at all the surveillance tapes. We didn't see you guys on there. When did this happen? And my wife was like, just before I called you, and so just after 3 o'clock in the morning. And they were like, yeah, we went through all the tapes and there was nothing. We didn't find you, we didn't see your coworker, nothing. Nobody was on the unit at all. You're sure you were there? You're sure you were on that floor? My wife was like, yes, absolutely. It was the 4th floor. We were there from this time to this time. I know because I looked. And they were like, it was just such a bizarre situation. So, a couple things that I needed to add after reviewing video to this point with my wife. So, a couple things about the unit that had left this floor. It was decommissioned. They were removed from the hospital it was a private contract hospital. Kind of within the hospital is a long-term acute care. So there was people who were too unstable to go to like just regular long-term care, but too stable to stay within the confines of a normal hospital. And people whose families just couldn't let go, even though there were a lot of them that probably were close to end of life type situations. Now, it's very tough to make those decisions, but yeah. So So this was one of those things, this private contract kind of facility within the hospital was pushed out of this hospital that my wife worked at. That's why this floor was shut down, is because this LTAC had been forced out. Slightly before, just the week before they vacated, there was part of the reason why they were left. There was just allegations of substandard care, possible abuse allegations, and the week before they vacated the floor, there was a child who was not a patient there on the floor, became unresponsive, coded, and died on the floor. Was not a patient. The code team from the hospital went there, tried to revive, was unable to. This child died there on the floor. And there's a hospital, there is those type of things. So one last thing that my wife wanted me to make sure that I brought up. There was just this feeling of heaviness. There was, she said it felt like time had somewhat slowed, which is why I say possibly, maybe glitch in the matrix for this. But she said it felt as if they were there 20 minutes and they were moving, trying to move fast through this to get to the other set of elevators. But they had, she said that it just felt like they were swimming along in this unit. And she said it might have only been 3 minutes that they were there, maybe more, but it felt like 20 because it felt just like things had slowed that much. And with the sound of that big slamming down of the book or whatever right there, it felt like there was something malicious behind it. There was something there that did not want her and her coworker there on the floor. But it was holding them there, possibly to help them understand that they weren't welcome. That's the story for today, guys. Thanks for joining me on the Jaywalk today. If you like the story, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends, let them decide. So what do you think? Glitch in the Matrix? Just a straight up crazy paranormal story? A ghost that didn't like people? What do you think? Leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Join me on the next Jaywalk. We'll see you soon.